For thousands of years, the pyramids of Giza have stood as one of the greatest stone mysteries ever known to mankind. A structure that defies time, built with a level of precision that seems far ahead of its era, aligned with the cardinal directions, and constructed with a complexity that raises a simple question. In the previous chapter, we asked, were the pyramids truly just tombs? But what if? We have been asking the wrong question all along. What if these structures were never built to house the dead, but to contain something else entirely? Something we cannot see, something we cannot hear, a system we have yet to understand. In the 1990s, an American engineer, Christopher Dunn, proposed one of the most controversial theories of all. He did not see the pyramids as tombs, but as machines. Massive, precisely engineered machines. But could the ancients have possessed knowledge that we have since lost? In this chapter, we explore the theory known as the Giza power plant. In the previous chapter, we questioned whether the pyramids were truly built as tombs. Now, we turn to a theory that attempts to answer a far more complex question. What if the Great Pyramid was not a tomb, but a machine? According to engineer Christopher Dunn, the internal structure of the Great Pyramid was designed as a unified system, a system composed of the subterranean chamber, the Queen's Chamber, the King's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, and the so-called star shafts, each element serving a specific role within a larger engineering design. In this model, the subterranean chamber represents the starting point. Dunn proposed that it may have acted as a source of vibrations transmitted through the structure to stimulate the King's Chamber, bringing it into a state of resonance. But there was a problem. Dunn did not propose a clear mechanism for how these vibrations could be generated. Years later, another engineer, John Cadman, specialized in drilling and hydraulic systems, encountered a possible clue. While studying a book by Edward Kunkel, he came across a description suggesting that the subterranean chamber may have functioned as a kind of pump. This led Cadman to notice a resemblance between the chamber's design and the principles of what is known as a hydraulic ram pump, a device that uses the flow of water and air pressure to lift water to higher elevations without any external energy source. Intrigued by this similarity, Cadman constructed a simplified model.
In Washington, we met with an engineer and researcher named John Cadman. John has created a scale model replica of the subterranean chamber pulse generator under the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is an incredibly important discovery to understand because it can be the first proof of concept regarding ancient technology. This discovery may give us great insight into the ways of the ancient past. What would something like this have been used for? How did and why did they create something like this?
Saw this book on the shelf, 5/5/2006, in the alternate history sort of area. I checked it out. I was just looking at the pictures and the drawings, and I came across Edward Kunkel's pictures, and he had said it was used as some sort of pump. And so I reproduced that same model back in June of 1999. April 3rd, 2000, first try it ran. Pushed the valve in once and it started running. Immediately what happened, the whole 500-pound block of cement and rock and rebar was pulsing. Boom, 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 boom. And the first thing that came to mind was exactly what Chris Dunn had written, that there was a pulse that was emanating from that room, but he knew the mechanism was in there. Immediately I knew, oh my God, Chris, you're right.
At that moment, he considered the possibility that Dunn's hypothesis might have been correct, that the subterranean chamber could generate the pulses needed to excite the king's chamber and bring it into resonance. Dunn further supported this idea by pointing to the descending passage leading to the subterranean chamber, extending over 105 meters, with nearly 60 meters cut directly into the bedrock and aligned with remarkable precision, potentially allowing controlled water flow into the chamber. Cadman also suggested that water may have been directed from the Nile toward the pyramid, possibly through surrounding structures. Additional observations included the rough surfaces of the subterranean chamber, signs that some interpret as erosion or mineral deposits along the walls, as well as carved depressions in the floor that may have guided water movement in a specific pattern. Even the flat ceiling has been proposed as a surface against which water could strike, generating pulses, despite the chamber's appearance, which many consider unfinished. However, this theory has not gone unchallenged. Critics argue that the energy generated by such a system would likely be insufficient to move or resonate a structure as massive as the king's chamber, which weighs over 1,500 tons. They also point out that clear evidence of sustained water flow, such as definitive channels or mineral deposits, has not been conclusively confirmed. So the question remains, are these observations evidence of an advanced system or interpretations shaped by modern expectations? Dunn's theory goes even further. He proposed that the second chamber, the Queen's Chamber, was not symbolic, but functional, a chamber designed for a chemical reaction. According to this model, materials could have been introduced through the so-called star shafts. From one shaft, an acidic solution, such as hydrochloric acid. From the other, a reactive metal, such as zinc. Bringing these elements together within a cavity inside the chamber could, in theory, produce hydrogen gas, a gas that, when excited, can release significant energy. In this scenario, the hydrogen would rise from the Queen's chamber toward the King's chamber, where it could be stimulated or brought into resonance. Dunn supported this idea by pointing to the structure of the Queen's chamber shafts. Unlike those of the King's chamber, these shafts do not open outward. Instead, they terminate at small stone doors, fitted with copper handles, discovered in the 1990s by German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink using a robotic probe sent deep into the narrow passages. Dunn suggested that these copper elements may have functioned as electrodes. He also noted that the stone door appears slightly elevated, potentially allowing substances to pass beneath it. Signs of corrosion on the copper handles have been interpreted by some as consistent with chemical interaction. In one shaft, the corrosion appears to rise upward, which Dunn associated with acidic flow. In the other, a darker coating and differing patterns of wear have been interpreted as possible evidence of electrochemical processes, similar to deposition effects seen in laboratory conditions. Additional observations have been sighted within the Queen's chamber itself. In the 19th century, the British investigator Piazzi Smith reported a strong odor and what he described as thick salt deposits along the upper surfaces of the chamber. Earlier explorers, including Wayneman Dixon, also noted variations in the texture of the stone within the shafts, which some have interpreted as possible signs of fluid movement. However, this interpretation remains highly controversial. Critics argue that salt deposits are common in limestone as a result of moisture moving through the stone over long periods of time. They also point out that there is no clear evidence of a sealed system capable of containing and controlling such a chemical reaction. So once again, we are left between two possibilities. Are these features traces of a lost technology or natural effects, later interpreted through a modern lens? Dunn's interpretation does not stop there. He turned his attention to one of the most striking features inside the pyramid, the Grand Gallery, a vast, elongated space stretching nearly 47 meters with a height of over 8 meters. Unlike a simple passage, its design appears deliberate, precise, and highly unusual. According to Dunn, the Grand Gallery may have functioned as a resonating chamber, a structure designed to receive vibrations, organize them, amplify their effect, and direct them upward toward the king's chamber. To illustrate this idea, he drew a comparison to musical instruments. When a string vibrates on its own, the sound is weak. But when that vibration is transferred into a hollow wooden body, like that of a guitar or an oud, the sound becomes stronger, clearer, and more focused. In this analogy, the Grand Gallery acts as the body that contains and enhances the vibrations. Dunn based this interpretation on several architectural features: the solid stone walls, which could reflect sound waves and reduce energy loss; the elongated shape, which may guide waves along a single axis; the narrow structure, which could limit dispersion and maintain focus as the waves travel upward; and the sheer scale of the gallery, which may allow a natural resonance to develop within the space. In this view, the Grand Gallery functions as an amplifier, a resonating chamber, enhancing vibrations originating from the subterranean chamber and directing them toward the king's chamber. However, this interpretation has also been challenged. Critics argue that the Grand Gallery does not contain a sealed air cavity nor openings that would allow controlled air movement necessary for strong acoustic amplification. They also point out that the gallery is open at both ends, which would allow energy to dissipate rather than build up. From this perspective, the structure may guide sound and reduce its loss, but not necessarily amplify it. So once again, we are left with a question. Is the Grand Gallery a carefully engineered resonating system, or simply a remarkable architectural passage interpreted through a modern lens? At the center of this theory lies the king's chamber, a space constructed from massive blocks of red granite, with 5 relieving chambers above it, also built from enormous granite slabs, weighing between 40 and 70 tons, raised nearly 40 meters inside the pyramid. These upper chambers are flat below, but carefully structured above, with precise voids and spaces within the stone. Granite itself contains a high percentage of quartz, a material known to generate electrical charges when subjected to pressure or vibration, a phenomenon called the piezoelectric effect. The same principle used in devices as simple as a lighter, where mechanical pressure produces a spark, or in microphones, where sound vibrations are converted into electrical signals. According to Dunn, the king's chamber may have functioned in a way similar to a maser, a device designed to amplify electromagnetic waves and organize them into a coherent and focused output, like a group of people clapping randomly until a conductor brings them into perfect rhythm, making the sound stronger and more unified. In this model, several elements would be required: a chamber made of suitable material, such as granite, where the process could occur, a source of hydrogen gas introduced into the chamber, a mechanism to excite that gas, raising its energy state, a system to direct the resulting energy, and an outlet through which it could be released. Dunn proposed that hydrogen gas generated in the Queen's chamber would rise into the King's chamber. There, vibrations propagating through the structure would interact with the granite walls, producing electrical effects and potentially an electromagnetic field. He further suggested that the granite sarcophagus served as a containment vessel for the gas during excitation, and that the northern shaft, with a cross-sectional dimension of approximately 21 centimeters, corresponds to the wavelength of hydrogen, acting as a waveguide direct in energy, while the southern shaft may have served as an outlet. Taken together, this forms a model in which the pyramid operates as an integrated system for energy generation and transmission. However, despite its internal logic, this theory faces significant criticism. There is no clearly defined pathway for hydrogen to move between the chambers, no confirmed inlet within the King's chamber to introduce or control such a gas. And while quartz can generate electrical charges, the amounts produced are typically very small, raising questions about whether this effect could power a system on this scale. So we are left with a compelling idea, but an uncertain reality. Is the King's chamber the final stage of a lost technology, or simply a remarkable structure interpreted through modern imagination? According to Dunn's interpretation, the pyramid was not built as a tomb, but as a machine, a vast integrated system working in harmony. Water rising from the Nile, entering through the descending passage into the subterranean chamber, where it strikes, generating pulses that travel through the structure. These vibrations are guided and amplified by the Grand Gallery until the King's chamber is brought into resonance. There, the granite walls respond to the pressure, producing electrical effects, while hydrogen gas generated in the Queen's chamber rises upward to be excited, releasing greater energy. That energy is then directed through the so-called star shafts and released beyond the pyramid itself. And across ancient Egypt, the obelisks stand like silent receivers, waiting. If this model is true, then the pyramids were not monuments to the dead, but instruments of power. But this leads to an even deeper question. Has anyone in the modern world ever succeeded in unlocking the secret of this technology? Or does it remain hidden beneath stone and time? If you want to wear the mystery, explore the official ANKH collection in the description below.